Manjack moving to outside wide receiver gives an opportunity to some young guys that haven't really produced yet, but have a lot of potential.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by Monarch Money. Take control of managing your money, not just budgeting, but a wealth management app. Monarch Money, I'll tell you about them later on in the show. The Big 12, could they pick off the remains of the ACC in the next few years? A report came out on Thursday that North Carolina is interested in exploring a move to the SEC. What would that mean for the Big 12 and the rest of college football? We'll get to that later on in the show, but we start today. It's fall camp week. Congratulations, everybody. We have made it to a week where there's real practice and real preparation happening for that season opener against Bill Belichick in North Carolina coming up in about a month. We're in the home stretch of the waiting time of the offseason. We've made it through all the projections, all the lists, and we're going to get to see some real football soon and at least get some reports soon on what's happening in practice. So, what are some of the key position battles, storylines, things that are going to be happening during fall camp? Well, one, I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a position battle. I guess it sort of is. But TCU added Joseph Manjack this offseason in the transfer portal from the University of Houston. He's had a very productive career, started his career at USC, transfers over to Houston, has a couple good seasons, and is now at TCU as a Horned Frog. And when he landed here, my first thought was he would be playing in the slot most of the time because he would switch back and forth at Houston, but he did a lot of his damage as an inside wide receiver. And I still think there's a possibility that that's where he lands because I feel like as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach, you want your best players on the field. I think as of now, your best three wide receivers are Eric McAllister, Jordan Dwyer, and Joseph Manjack. Now, there's some young guys that have something to say about it, right? There's some players that have exciting potential. I'll get to a few here in a minute. Doozy Ezekama is another guy that has done a lot of great things over the past couple of years. We've heard his name called, Braylon James. There's potentially other contributors, but as of right now, those are the three guys that I think are the best and could be the most productive for TCU this season. However, what we've heard through the spring and leading up to fall camp is that Manjack has been working a lot as an outside wideout. I talked to Eric McAllister, at Big 12 Media Days. And I was asking him about Dwyer specifically and what he brings to the table as a transfer wide receiver. And he talked about him, but he also said he included Joseph Manjack in this answer. He said he's never seen so many go balls completed during a spring practice. Now, that might make some of you worry about the secondary. Maybe it makes you excited about the wide receiver room. I guess you could look at it both ways. His point was there's depth, there's talent, and there's multiple guys on this team who can stretch the field vertically, which is a really good sign because Jack Besh was a dude who could take the top off the defense. Savion was a good 50-50 ball type of player, but even with as much success as TCU had throwing the ball around last season, the vertical passing game wasn't always consistent. So if that dimension is added with some more consistency this year, then that's good news for TCU football. But if Manjack stays on the outside, then suddenly at that slot wide receiver, at that inside wide receiver, you have an opportunity for somebody to step up and make something happen. And there's two players that have both dealt with a lot of injuries so far in their career, but when they've had the ball in their hands, you see the potential, you see the excitement. Towards the end of the season last year, Jordan Bailey started making some plays. Had a one-handed touchdown catch against Baylor, had a pop pass rush for a touchdown against Oklahoma State where he showed his speed, his explosiveness. Overall, 9 receptions, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. In his freshman season in 2023, 5 receptions, 103 yards, and 1 touchdown. Also had 74 yards rushing last year. And then Major Everheart from Amarillo, who was a very exciting recruit that they landed a couple seasons back. In 2023, 20 receptions for 197 yards. He also had 7 rushes for 26 yards. In 2024, dealt with injuries pretty much all year long. And so his stat line, 1 catch for 4 yards. But both these guys have the chance to step up and be the starters and take the place of JP Richardson. And as much as we've talked about Savion Williams and Jack Besh and what those losses mean for this offense, JP Richardson was an extremely consistent player. He was really good at moving the chains. He was very reliable. He caught the ball when it was thrown his way. And he's making some waves at Bears camp right now. He's with the Chicago Bears, and he's making plays there. So I wouldn't be shocked if he makes the roster. That would be obviously a great thing for him and for TCU. But losing JP Richardson is significant as well. And you need somebody to be a presence at that inside wide receiver spot. Last offseason, I remember I think it was either going into the spring or going into fall camp. Sonny held a press conference after the first couple practices, and they asked him about some guys that stood out. And he immediately mentioned Major Everhart and Jordan Bailey as, hey, these are guys that you can just tell they're not freshmen anymore, having a year of football under their belt, even if it wasn't a year where they played a lot on the field, just having that experience, understanding, okay, these are the expectations that we have for you. This is what it looks like to be a college football player, to balance that with what you're doing off the field as well, that they looked more confident and that they were ready to make plays. Now, unfortunately for both of them, injuries kind of derailed their season. We did see, however, towards the end of the year, Jordan Bailey make some things happen. And I've said a couple times this offseason, since Darius Davis left, this is a part of the offense that's kind of been missing. Not production from the slot wide receiver, but having sort of that gadget guy on the inside who can take a jet sweep, take a pop pass, contribute on special teams, that you can get involved in the offense in a number of different ways. Jordan Bailey could bring that to the table. Major Everhart could too. I feel like sometimes I forget about him because of the injuries last year, but he was a recruit that made a lot of headlines when he signed or when he committed and signed with TCU. This was a player that they were super excited about going into last season, and he contributed on special teams as well as a wide receiver in that 2023 year. So both those guys are players that have the ability, if you get the ball in their hands, to make guys miss, take it to the house, and use that speed and athleticism to really give defenses fits. Another name to know when we're talking about inside wide receivers is Ed Small. Ed Small from Anderson High School in the Austin area had a incredibly productive high school career, was the MVP of the state 7-on-7 tournament last summer, outstanding senior year, and it's just one of those dudes when you turn on the tape, he's always open. And they used him in a number of different ways too while he was in high school. And I know Jeremy Clark from 247 Sports was saying that he was working with the special teams unit on punt returns. So that could be an aspect of his game as well. So there's some chances here for all three of these guys to make things happen. It's interesting because while we're excited about the potential of Everhart and Bailey and their explosiveness, it feels like reporters around the team, when they're asked, okay, who are some freshmen that you could really see stepping up and making some things happen in their true freshman season, Ed Small's name continues to come up as this is a guy that's going to be really hard to keep him off the field because he just makes plays over and over and over again. And for Josh Hoover, you got to find that security blanket somehow, whether it's your slot wide receiver, whether it's your tight end and DJ Rogers, maybe Kamorian Pimpton. Yes, you want to have production from those guys on the outside, but somebody has to be a presence over the middle that can move the chains, that can be reliable. And there's an opportunity now for some of these young guys to step in and make that happen. I would love to see either Everhart or Bailey emerge because this is kind of a make or break year for them. You feel like year 3, especially in this new era of college football where, I mean, the portal's always open, and not that we're encouraging guys to enter it, but it's just kind of the clock is ticking. Once you get a highly rated guy on campus, it's almost like the clock starts ticking on, okay, how can we make sure they feel like they're valued, they're heard, and also they're getting opportunities to play? Because if they don't, what's to keep them from looking up and saying, well, maybe I can go somewhere else and be a productive player. So for Jordan Baylor, for Major Everhart, for Ed Small, there's a chance starting in fall practice to really make an impression and make something happen, make some waves in that um, area that JP Richardson left as a productive slot wide receiver. When we come back, is the Big 12 staying together because there's not attractive programs for the SEC and Big 10? We'll tackle that next year on Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. Monarch Money. It's first of the month's coming up. My wife gets paid on Thursday. Praise the Lord. I'll get paid the next week. And it's that typical conversation you have with your spouse, or at least I have with my spouse, of, okay, what bills are coming out? How much income's coming in? How much do we have to pay? And then what does it look like after we get that done for the next week or 2 weeks or whenever the next paycheck comes in? Monarch Money can make it simple for you. Go to monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. It's not just a budgeting app, it's also a wealth management center. If you have investments, you can track all of them at monarchmoney.com. All your accounts in one place. It's very easy to use. And hey, take advantage of this deal. I mean, half off your first year if you use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. Monarch Money, take control of your finances. It's something you can't mess with. Do it today. So when I tackle a realignment topic on the show, it reaches a little further than the typical audience. And I don't really look at like reaction during the weekend, but as I was preparing for today, I clicked on the video and I saw this. So if you missed the show on Friday, I talked about North Carolina. There's a report out there that North Carolina is exploring a move to the SEC, from the ACC to the SEC. Now, this would most likely happen in 3 or 4 years because the exit fees for ACC schools, what they would have to pay to leave the conference, decreases every year. And I think in 2029, it's down to 75 million, which is about half of what it is right now. So North Carolina is exploring those options. They're basically forming a committee to look into what it would be like to move to the SEC. Florida State and Clemson have also been very upset about the ACC's TV deal. And if we see the ACC fall apart, it gives the Big 12 the opportunity, sort of like they did with the Pac 12, to pick off some of those remaining schools and continue to add to their conference. So a YouTube commenter hopped in on the conversation over the weekend and said the Big 12 is around. This is from Thomas Moss. The Big 12 is around because they have no brands that the Power 2 are interested in, meaning he thinks the SEC and the Big 10 have no interest in any of the schools in the Big 12, and that's why they've survived. I guess he thinks that's a big burn. Yeah, there's some truth to that. I think I sort of alluded to it in that conversation when the Big 12 looked like it was falling apart, when Texas and OU left and everything shifted across college sports. The Pac 12 had the opportunity to take on some of those teams. They could have basically, wrote the Big 12's demise if they took 3 or 4 schools, left the others to wander in the wilderness. And TCU was one of those schools that, according to Mac Engel, and this was an article that he wrote later on, but Jeremiah Donati, who was the AD at the time, he had conversations with the Pac-12, and they were exploring the possibility of what it would look like if they joined the conference out on the West Coast. Thankfully, they didn't. They stayed in the Big 12. And the Pac-12 kind of arrogantly said, you know what, we're not interested in any of the schools. We're good. Shortly thereafter, their conference falls apart. And sort of in the middle of all that, Brett Yormark got to the table with some TV executives and said, you know what, I want to go ahead and get my television deal done right now. I think there's a window. I think there's an opportunity here for us to hash something out. I know it's not going to be on the level of the Big Ten and SEC, but let's at least get some concrete numbers in place so that the programs I'm representing know this is the type of money that they'll have coming in. And then since then, he and the presidents have worked proactively to try to close that gap as much as they can. So you're right. Like, part of it is the SEC and the Big Ten aren't clamoring to grab these Big 12 schools. But I think the good consequence from all that is this league is more united than ever. Like, everybody's on the same page. Everyone's trying to survive in the new world of college sports. It's a group of 16 schools at the moment that want to be really good. Like, TCU is spending money. They're trying to keep up with facilities. They're trying to keep up with NIL. They're doing their best to keep talented players on campus. Texas Tech is spending a lot of money in the transfer portal and high school recruiting. Baylor recently has upped their spending. Oklahoma State has jumped in finally after sitting for a few years on the sidelines. Mike Gundy said, you know what, if I'm going to be here, I want to do this right. So let's get it going. And with the revenue sharing model that is happening now, there's an opportunity for Big 12 schools, if the money's more equal, to sell their recruits, hey, you can play some of the best competition in the country here. You can make it to the college football playoff in the Big 12. You can make it to the league from the Big 12. So yes, the league is surviving in part because the Big Ten and the SEC aren't super interested in shopping Big 12 schools. But the flip side of that is there's a lot of unity within the conference, and because the Big 12 schools have stability, they don't feel like the league's falling apart anytime soon. Their people are empowered to be aggressive and try to get good talent. Try to put the best competitive product on the field because they believe that there's a path to national championships by playing in the Big 12. And if the ACC falls apart, because it doesn't really matter why they fall apart. If the reason they fall apart is because North Carolina and Clemson are attracted to the SEC, and then suddenly Florida State makes the jump somewhere, okay, that still means the league is going to fall apart, and that the Big 12 can swallow up some of those teams and can still have a seat at the table when we're talking about the future of college football. Yes, the elephant in the room and the concern for the Big 12 is that one day the Big 10 and the SEC decide to just break away and do their own thing and hold their own championship. And maybe at that point they get more aggressive in realignment and they say, you know what, let's add, 5 or 6 more schools. Let's both get to 20 or 25 and have essentially a super league with 40 teams or 50 teams. But I'll take those odds over one of the schools in the Big 12 constantly, desperately searching for a Power 2 invite. And the minute they leave, the carnage ensues and suddenly the league falls apart. So I don't think that's the roast you think it is. Because, yeah, that might be true, but the ACC could be over in the next 5 years because they have schools that are just actively searching to leave the league because they're not happy with the TV deal and they see opportunity elsewhere. The Big 12, for the first time ever, really, they don't have a Texas or an Oklahoma that's always seeing if the grass is greener on the other side. there's unity within the conference, and that's a good thing for the league. When we come back, could there be a big shift in the Big 12 on Monday? We'll talk about that next year on Lockdown Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Before we do that, I do want to tell you about Gametime. Gametime, it's the easiest way to buy tickets. Like just literally a few clicks on your phone and tickets will go straight to the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. A lot of great features about the Gametime app. They show you a picture of what your view is going to be from your seat. When you sit down, there's no hidden fees. There's some fees, but the fees aren't hidden. They tell you exactly what they are up front. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets. It's okay. You can still use the Gametime app. Download it today. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions, as always, do apply. Gametime, sporting events, theater shows, comedy shows. Get to an MLB game. Go to the Gametime app today or Gametime in the Android store as well. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. So there's a good chance you're watching or listening to this after this news broke, but I did want to mention it on Monday. Deion Sanders is holding a press conference with his medical team at 11 a.m. on Monday. And I don't know what he's going to announce. There's been some rumors that he might be stepping down temporarily or retiring. I hope that's not the case. I mean, first of all, if you're doing a press conference with your health team, that's concerning. So prayers to Deion. I hope he's okay. But he's good for the league, man. I mean, his press conference, Big 12 Media Days, was super entertaining. The attention that he brings to Colorado and to the conference is good for the Big 12 overall. But the most important thing is his health. So I hope that he's okay. And whatever is announced today is something that's treatable and that he can, continue to coach at Colorado. But I did want to throw that news out there that he's making some sort of announcement this morning, and his medical team will be there, I guess, to answer questions, maybe outline whatever the plan's going to be for him as a coach in the near future. But yeah, that would be a huge change, even if he's just out for a couple games within the structure of the league, because Colorado's got some really talented players. And he's done a great job of getting those guys ready to play over the past few years. Big change now with no Travis Hunter, with Shedeur being gone, but still a lot of talent on that roster. We'll see what that announcement ends up being, and we'll talk about it later on in the week here on Locked On Horned Frogs. Before we go, some other YouTube reaction from the show on Friday. Henry Moore says it's detrimental for both TCU and SMU to have two DFW teams in the Big 12. TCU's already in it. Lockout SMU. If the situation was reversed, SMU would fight like heck to keep TCU out. Yeah, possibly. The reason he says that is because when I was talking about the ACC falling apart, I mentioned that SMU joining the Big 12 would make a ton of sense if it came down to that. I mean, I hear what you're saying. The recruiting battles will get more intense, but at the same time, they're already in a power league. I mean, like, I guess if the option was sending them to conference purgatory again, then yes, that would be preferential for TCU. But I feel like they have so much funding and resources that I just seriously doubt they're going to be out in the cold. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. Mountaineer Mike said, living in West Virginia, I would love to see Virginia Tech and Virginia in the Big 12. Maybe not the best available, but easier for me to see a game in person. Yeah, I would love to see Virginia Tech in the league. I don't know a ton about Virginia. I know they came to Fort Worth. I think it was when I was a sophomore and played TCU. I believe it was TCU's first year in the Big 12 in a non-conference game. But Virginia Tech's, I mean, that's a fun atmosphere in Blacksburg. And yeah, I think that'd be great to have them in the league. So the Virginia schools, for sure. And that's the type of school that programs that you'd like to add if it came down to it, because there's good tradition. They want to be a factor in major college sports, and it just adds to the cachet of the league. We'll be here all week. Fall camp starts Love you guys. Appreciate you tuning in, watching, listening. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get to 1,500 before football season starts.